I want us to invite Chanda Mwale, who's giving us a wild talk around wildlife, and she's the executive director from the Wildlife Producers Association of Zambia. Let's just encourage her to come to stage.
Good morning, everybody, again. My name is Chanda Mwale. I work with the Wildlife Producers Association of Zambia, which is a membership-based association that exists to grow an inclusive and thriving wildlife economy in Zambia. Now, the title of my talk was Wildlife Economy, but before I get into the wildlife economy details, since this is a careers fair, I'm actually going to share what my journey has been from undergraduate to date, some of the things that I've learned between then and now that I hope will be of value to some of you seated here today. And then, of course, I'll go into the science and talk about wildlife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I also do not want to spend too much time talking about wildlife per se, because I believe that a lot of conservation and what we view as careers in conservation has been obsessed with wildlife. And whilst I agree, the natural resource is our base, the future of conservation is a lot more than just wildlife. So, my career journey. My favorite subject in school was geography. None of my friends understood why I liked geography, but for whatever reason, it was my absolute favorite subject. So when I went into university, I decided that I'm going to do a degree in geography and environmental management, and at the time, it seemed like a good idea. When I was going to uni, environmental impact assessments were just starting up. And so I firmly believe that when I graduate, I'm going to work for ZEMA. I will do EIAs and all that kind of paperwork. Of course, as life would have it, none of that happened. I did, however, graduate, which is a good thing, and I came back home and tried to find a job. The first job that I had was actually working for a solid waste management company. Basically, one of these private contractors who come and pick up garbage from your house. That was my first job. I entered as a graduate trainee, keen, excited. It wasn't ZEMA, but it was something to do. What my first job taught me was that, first of all, I am not too qualified for any task. I went in there with what I like to call graduate arrogance. Of course, I'm a graduate. I know some things. And I was asked to do some very mundane tasks, like count the number of houses in a street. And I thought to myself, in the heat of October, and I'm counting houses, just like I'm back in university, because as a geographer, we did things like count houses and count people. So at that job, I learned that I'm not overqualified for anything, but also I learned to apply myself to whatever was before me. So, being faithful, having integrity in the little things, and building that discipline will help you a lot as you go further in your career. After that job, I had a couple of other jobs, and then I had what I like to call my big break. I got an opportunity to work for WWF Zambia, and I joined them as a young expert in water. So again, a little bit of a graduate trainee, but a slight markup because it was a bigger organization. I worked for WWF Zambia, and I was there for 6 years, and in that job, I learned a couple of things. The first was the nature of WWF is it's a big organization. You have lots of people all over the world who are doing things that are quite similar to what you're doing. And if you do not have the courage to ask, you will probably end up starting from scratch with something that somebody else could have helped you with. So wherever you go, whatever you do, if there are others who have gone before you, do not be shy or afraid to ask. And also, I learned the skills of networking, and I'll get to networking a little bit later. Now, during my time with WWF, I also went on to start, I think I did finish, my master's whilst I was under WWF. And I was also very strategic about what I chose to do. So I had a clear plan for my career. I said, okay, this is a big organization. They are able to give me some time off to do my study, but there's also some support that I can leverage off of. So I was strategic enough to start doing my master's. And I worked smart in that I chose a topic that was also useful to the organization that I was working for. So I had their full support to do what it is that I needed to do. I killed two birds with one stone. I furthered my education, but I was also useful to my employer. And these are some of the things that can help you place yourself strategically. After I moved on from that job, I then came into the job that I currently do, or some version of what I currently do. I moved from water to wildlife. For many people in conservation sector, we are diverse thinkers, but we're not really diverse thinkers. Because a lot of the questions that I got was, why move from water to wildlife? For me, it wasn't a big deal. I'm a geographer. Geographer is the mother of all sciences. After I'm done with wildlife, I'm going to move to forests. It's as simple as that for me. But I would like to encourage all of you, and I like to believe that that is the strength of your generation, is you do not allow people to put you in a box. And it's having the skill set, like Mwale said, so do not focus on a knowledge-based economy, but it is your ability to apply, adapt, learn, and relearn. You're going to have different jobs throughout your career. You won't all work for the same type of institution and be in there for 10, 20, 30 years like our parents did. But you're going to have the ability to adapt to whatever it is that you're going to find, wherever it is that you're going to go. And so these are some of the skills that have helped me through my career and get to where I am today. Also, don't be afraid to take risks. Sometimes it seems a bit scary, but I think whilst you're relatively young, if you plan well enough, take the plunge and try and do something that you haven't done before. So those are some of my career nuggets, some of the things that have helped me get to where I am today. And before I transition to talk about the wildlife economy, how that applies to yourselves, and what opportunities you have, I would like to just take a moment to speak around networking. Now, Jito and I actually graduated from the same school of business. So I happen to know Jito a little bit. I would say, as Chanda, Jito is in my network. I have his phone number. Now, I am yet to call Jito and ask Jito for a favor related to my work. It's not that I could not, but I am yet to do that. And I give this example because as you grow and as you flesh out your network, you also have to be very strategic about when you leverage your network. Don't bother people about non-issues. If I'm in your network, maybe you need a favor. Really think through, is this the thing? If you had one shot, one thing to ask of somebody who is within your network, is the thing that you're going to ask of them what you really, 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 really absolutely need? Or can you save that favor for another thing? One of the things about our generation, your generation, maybe you guys and I are in a slightly different, I like to consider myself young, but I think I'm a bit over the hill. But one of the things about your generation is that you're very forward, which is a wonderful thing. You are not afraid, you are confident, you approach people. But networking is not sending me a WhatsApp, sending me an email, and sending me a LinkedIn message. That is harassment. And it's very important to learn the professionalism that comes with networking and leveraging your network. Networking is also not just collecting contact details. It is actually relationship building. So it doesn't matter if you have 200 professionals in your phone. Your success will likely come from nurturing genuine relationships with maybe 5 or 10 of those professionals. So take the time to look at quality over quantity. And that would be my advice around networking, leveraging your network, and growing as you go along. And when you leave jobs, if you can leave a job, or if you have to leave a job, always try and leave on good terms. I'm in contact with all of my previous employers, and they've come and been very helpful for me in my life, at different points. So where you can, live as peacefully as you possibly can. Okay, enough of the preaching. I will then move on to the wildlife economy and the opportunities that exist for yourselves as young people. So we have a booth. I work with the Wildlife Producers Association of Zambia. As I said, we have a booth in the tent, the main tent, and you can learn a little bit more about our work. You can also find out a report that we launched last year on the wildlife economy, and I'll give you a brief definition of that. Now, the wildlife economy is the sustainable use of plants and animals, terrestrial and aquatic, to create value and contribute towards development. In a nutshell, a lot of the future of conservation is going to be in the wildlife economy. Because as a continent, we need to develop, we need to create value, and people need viable jobs, right? We're going to have to be able to sustainably use these resources, and we're going to have to create jobs for you guys. I firmly believe that the wildlife economy, which includes activities such as ecotourism, carbon trading, wildlife ranching, timber products, as well as fishing, is where the future and the future of going green for Zambia is. In terms of jobs, job qualifications, where you can plug yourself, how you must think of some of these things. I know Jito spoke a lot about economics and he sort of went into the nitty-gritty, debt restructuring, et cetera, but the future of conservation is also going to look a lot at financing. So we're going to need a lot fewer, I would argue, ecologists and more economists in conservation. There's going to be a broad spectrum of skill sets that we're going to need, and we won't all need to be boxed in wildlife management, ecology, and environmental education. We're going to need marketers, we're going to need communicators, we're going to need accountants, we're going to need lawyers, we're going to need economists. So really, I would argue that it doesn't matter what your background is. I think just about everybody, if they have the calling and the ability to adapt and apply themselves, can work in conservation. In terms of your generation, what you can do next, how you go about this, I would definitely encourage having an entrepreneurial mindset, a problem-solving mindset. And having that mindset does not mean that you are out in the streets hustling, you're setting up a business. Not all of us have to do that, and not all of us are capable of doing that. But even within an organization, if you are that one person who looks at a problem and is trying to solve that problem for your institution, you're going to create value and you're going to be a valuable resource. So these are some of the things and some of the opportunities that exist for the next generation of conservationists and for the next batch of conservation careers. Like I've mentioned, the wildlife economy is vast, it's broad. There's so many different things that can be done. You can set up a shop that is selling baobab and selling honey and selling game meat. You could set up a consultancy firm that looks into the legality of carbon trading and can become an advisor around that. I honestly and firmly believe that the possibilities are endless, and it is simply about application of oneself, depth of knowledge, and keeping to keep on. With that, I will end my wild talk on not just my career journey, but also the wildlife economy in Zambia. Thank you very much.